Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. I'm so excited. I have got an awesome guest for you tonight, guys. You know, I love Bigfoot. We all love Bigfoot here at Let's Get Freaky, and we're going to be talking Bigfoot tonight. Here we go, Thomas. Oh, man. Yeah, we just practiced this, and I kind of got it, but you're going to have to tell me again. I'm so sorry, sir. You know, I'm terrible with pronouncing names. Thomas.
Thomas Sewid, Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation, North American Indian tribe from northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada.
Awesome, brother. Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm not going to try and say that again. But it is an absolute pleasure having you here tonight, sir. I'm so happy to have you here. Bigfoot, as I say, is one of my favorite topics. I know we're going to be getting into that tonight. So before we do start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into this fascinating topic?
As I said, I'm Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation or North American Indian. And of all the tribes in North America, and there's over 1,200, my tribe is probably the closest tied to the Sasquatch, otherwise known as Bigfoot. I don't use the B word because I find it to be derogatory. And Dzoonakwa, what we call Sasquatch in my tribe, is the highest ranked crest. So crests are like when you display them, you're telling people like you would if you have a Rolex or a Mercedes Benz or a mansion, you're showing people your wealth and having the Dzoonakwa crest displayed in whether it be a totem pole, which most people know what that is, but there's actually welcoming poles, dowry poles, ridicule poles, house posts, memorial poles. So there's a whole bunch of different poles. And when you have your Dzoonakwa Sasquatch crest on it, you're telling people that my wealth and power can be felt around the world. And that would be coming from the chief of the family. And so when a chief dies, after about 3 years of mourning, they'll have a big celebration called a potlatch, where the next heir to the throne will feast everyone. So he had to acquire food with him and his family. They'll give gifts out. Nowadays, over $100,000 in gifts will be given out at the end of a potlatch of one night. And they'll display their box of treasure. We say they open the gildas, the box of treasure. It's all the crests, all the songs, the carvings, stories, everything comes out at a potlatch. And you're in a ceremonial big house where all the vertical and horizontal cedar logs that hold up the roof and walls are all carved of poles of mythical creatures like Thunderbird, and you'll have natural animals like raven and killer whale, grizzly bear, and of course Dzoonakwa, the Sasquatch. And when you see the central fire and you're at a potlatch and the different dances that take place, you will see the Dzoonakwa, the Sasquatch dance. With my family, we have a basket on its back, and the Dzoonakwa comes out and she yawns, and then she rubs her eyes, and then as she's walking, she's whooping, making the noise of Sasquatch, and then she'll put her hand out like that. And what she's showing everyone that's watching is beware the Dzoonakwa if you're kinging on them, children, because the Dzoonakwa Sasquatch is always watching children and not allowed to take them. But if they misbehave and act up, then Dzoonakwa can come at night with big hairy arm and stick it to the wherever they're sleeping, grab them, put tree sap called spruce sap in their eyes so they're blind, they can't open them. And that's when she tosses them into the basket on her back or stuffs them in a sack. And she'll take them into the forest up a mountain to her invisible home. That's why we can't find Sasquatch. And that's where she boils and eats the misbehaving children. So I first came into Dzoonakwa Sasquatch going back to my earliest memory as a child when I was told, Tommy, you behave yourself. Otherwise, Dzoonakwa's watching. She's going to come get you tonight. You behave yourself and do your chores and quit talking back and pulling the temper tantrum. So it's been our boogeyman. It's always been a part of our upbringing. And then, of course, you're going to the potlatch ceremonies because they're taking place by different chiefs and families. And sometimes, you might go to half a dozen in a year. But every one you go to, you'll see the Dzoonakwa Sasquatch crest. Walking through where I was born in Alert Bay, you would walk by the hospital and the graveyard, and you'd see all these memorial totem poles standing, and five of them at the bottom have puckered up lips like that, big breasts, sleepy eyes, and outstretched arms. The Dzoonakwa at the base of the pole, signifying that it was the highest ranked crest, and it's carrying every crest on top of that pole on its back. But as a young boy, I remember being terrified of going by that graveyard, especially if it was getting towards the end of the day, because I was worried that Dzoonakwa was going to come from the bush and grab me. And of course, you've seen those big totem poles and just put the fear into you. So it was always a part of my life, younger life and upbringing. And I guess when I was around 12, I went to the movie theater and Leonard Nimoy, Spock, was narrating Unsolved Mysteries. And that's where I saw the Patty film. And I'd seen one picture, a fuzzy picture earlier when I was, well, a couple of years before that. And it kind of intrigued me that here was this Sasquatch. And it was, I guess, I don't know if it was before or after seeing that movie, Unsolved Mysteries and Patty, but Dad and I were driving down the northern Vancouver Island highway at night, and it's all forest. And as we are coming down this hill, we knew there was a garbage can on the other side of the road where there was a pullover and a metal guardrail, and someone was sitting on the guardrail. And all of a sudden, that someone put its left hand down and sprung, and you could see the hair hanging off the arms and the bodies and the big soles of these huge feet and the hair flowing back out of its head, and it pounced and went over the bank and disappeared into the forest in the dark, and Dad swerving like this. And Jesus, I think we just saw a Sasquatch at Dzoonakwa. And I'm like, I thought it was a hippie. And he, oh no, that was a Dzoonakwa, that was a Sasquatch. So Dad and I saw one. And
Wow.
so that right there, that was like throwing gasoline on a spark. It ignited the curiosity in me. I needed to know more. And by being my tribe so tied to it, I would ask elders. And that's where I gained a lot of my knowledge. I was always Tommy 10,000 questions. How come? Why? When? Where? What was it like in the old days? And these old people at my grandparents' place, they would tell me. And my grandmother or grandfather would translate if they're speaking our language, Kwakwala, because I never have been fluent in it. But I would always ask, what do you know about Dzoonakwa Sasquatch? Have you ever seen one? And I'd get all these stories. And then being a commercial fisherman all my life, I started my commercial fishing career at 10 years old, full cruise share, working on a salmon seine boat during our summer break from school. And, we traveled to different towns off northern Vancouver Island. And then when I became a teenager, I went with my uncle and on a bigger boat, and we traveled the entire British Columbia coast. And I would end up in these communities like Bella Bella, uh, Port Alice, Port Eliza, Metlakatla, Kitkatla, Haida Gwaii, and places that most people will never get to. And of course, people would come down the dock, or we'd be walking along the boardwalk in the village. And of course, and then you're met with different tribes. And what do you know about Sasquatch? And they tell me, and they, oh, come up here, I'll show you my cousin. He's carving what we call books. That's our Sasquatch. He's carving a mask of it. And I'd be in a carving studio watching some guy with carving tools working away in some isolated town that you can only access by boat or float plane. And even Les Stroud, he would go to Clem too. He got the idea from Dr. John Bindernagel, my good friend of Vancouver Island, because I told him, if you guys are going to find Sasquatch, get up to Clem too. There's all kinds up there. And of course, Les Stroud, Survivor Man, did his first Sasquatch show in Clem too. But I've been there numerous times, and modern day smoke signal, the cell phone, and Facebook Messenger, I get people from all these Indian villages, even though I'm in Washington State right now in the Olympic Peninsula, a hotspot of Sasquatch in Washington. And, I'll get people calling me saying, hey, you hear that? And you can hear Sasquatches screaming. And I'm like, go outside, see if you can get a video. Are you kidding? I ain't going outside. Me and my wife are lying in bed with the window open. I think I'm going to close it too. I don't want big hairy arm coming in. So there's so much activity, and that's what makes me a very unique Sasquatch. I use the term specialist. And the reason why is because, number one, I've been around it all my life because of my tribe. Isolated areas throughout British Columbia coast and also through North America. And because I'm a fellow Indian, the Indians open up with me. And then, one of my big passions is art. I just finished this
Oh
about half an
wow.
hour before I went on show with you.
Oh
It's
man,
a
that's amazing. For the people watching on YouTube,
20
they'll
inch
be able to see
drum.
that. That is
Yeah.
so cool, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I do art, and then I work for SasquatchLegend.com here in Forks, Washington, largest Sasquatch museum and store in North America. And they'll take my designs like that one, Sasquatch Lives Matter, and mass produce it
Love it,
in
man. That's so
t-shirts,
cool.
mugs, cups. I even make those. That's one of my coffee cups right there of a Sasquatch
Oh
with a
man.
salmon in its hand.
Yeah. And
So,
for the
and
people
then,
listening, these are really cool Sasquatch designs. Awesome,
oh
man.
yeah, you just go to Sasquatch Island or SasquatchLegend.com and you can order online.
Wow, that's cool stuff. I need to get some of that, man. So it's fair
Yeah.
to say Sasquatch has always been a big part of your culture, and it's always been there.
Part of my culture, definitely. A huge part. And then the other thing was in being a commercial fisherman and a native, we go native food fishing. So, right from a kid, we'd jump on a boat, and adults would bring us out, drop anchor. And I remember as a young boy, you boys come ashore, it was a training program. There's four of us young guys, probably around early teens. And they brought us to the beach at daytime, and it was high tide. We're gonna dig clams there at night when the tide was low in the dark. And you guys look around for broken Charlie shells, cockle shells. You guys got cockles in England. Well, our cockles grow as big as big potatoes. And
Whoa.
you look for broken cockle shells on the high part of the beach. And if you find a pile of broken ones with the meat eaten, of course, or dispersed in a pile all around on the ground, you'll generally see big footprints as well. Well, that's when you get in your boat, go back to the big boat, pull anchor, and go a kilometer either way and find another shellfish beach because the broken cockle shells is a Sasquatch telling you we're harvesting here at night during the low tide. So we're taught to always be respectful of Sasquatch. We'll never ever think of harming them, hunting them, trapping them, killing them. And when you hear the you stop, turn around, go back where you came from. That's
Mhm,
Sasquatch telling you, stop, turn around, get out of here. I'm here. And broken shells. And, we're taught all this to always respect Sasquatch. So
mhm.
when as a young guy, I used to really like going in bush. And, I was a teenager when I shot my first grizzly bear. And the reason why I did it was because the Indian boys that were bigger than me were picking on me because I was chubby, wearing glasses, calling me Tommy 10,000 questions. Always got your head in a book reading. And, they just pick on me, bully me. So I thought when I was a teenager, well, I guess the best way is to show them I can piss higher up the fence post than them. I'm going to go shoot a grizzly bear. So I went out in my speedboat, whacked this 700-pound grizzly bear with a 30-30. And sure enough, they quit picking on me. They
Yeah,
realized
man.
that Tom's got big brass ones, size of cantaloupes. He's a tough bugger.
Yeah.
And I learned to, I found out I fell in love with bush and water world. So whenever I had a chance, I had boat under my feet and I was out there exploring. We ended up 1988, bought a aluminum 18-foot speedboat with a 60 horse Mercury outboard. I called it my water Harley because it was the same price of a Harley Davidson. And I covered the entire British Columbia coast of that thing. Like I was stationed in northern Vancouver Island, but I went some 300 miles north to Prince Rupert and Ketchikan, Alaska with that speedboat just because I wanted to get an ice cream cone in Ketchikan. And when our Supertramp was playing in Vancouver, British Columbia, I went 160 miles south on that speedboat in one day to go watch Supertramp. And
Wow.
parked my boat, got a hotel room, had a good time at Supertramp, jumped in my speedboat, went back up to the bush world where I was living and working because I was doing a native watchman program in an abandoned native village of ours with fallen totem poles on the ground, old houses, no one living there, but I was the watchman. And because so much history was written about it, and like a curve of time, totem poles and tea. Um, what do you call it? It's known famously as Mama Lalakula, village of the last potlatch, which is we don't call it Mama Lalakula, it's called Mimconlease, village with the rocks and the islands out front. But it had a very big potlatch in 1920 two, and 26 of our tribes members got sent to prison in Vancouver, British Columbia because they broke the anti-potlatch law. And so anyway, all this history meant people wanted to go see the village abandoned and the fallen totem poles on the ground. And I was stationed in 1988 as a native watchman there, and I would stay there until I think 2013 every summer. If I wasn't fishing, I was in there. And I built an ecotourism empire out of that abandoned village with a speedboat. Eventually, I would have a $280,000 tour boat with native orca design painted along the sides. You'll see it if you go
Wow.
to my Facebook group, Thomas Sewid, you'll see it on a post from this week, all my art that I've been doing. And one of them is the boat that a friend of mine and I painted with the native orca design. So doing ecotourism out in the bush, grizzly bear tours, whale watching, sea kayaking. I'm one of the pioneers of eco-cultural tourism in British Columbia. I'm one of the first humans to ever do a commercial boat-based whale watch, grizzly bear tour, and participated in the first ever sea kayak with whales in 1981. So
Wow.
everything about my life, whether it be commercial fishing and then ecotourism, was involving the bush. And eventually in the 90s, a gentleman anchored out in a 90-foot yacht, and I met him, and he hired me to be his hunting guide, assistant hunting guide. A couple of weeks later, he fired the head hunting guide, and I became the head hunting guide for black bears, wolves, cougars, and my specialty, grizzly bears. And that would bring me in the bush even more. And I would have run-ins and encounters with Sasquatch. I'd go scouting for animals before my two seasons every year by myself, sleeping in a hammock between two trees under a plastic tarp, sleeping with a 12 gauge and a rifle. I wake up at night and get my nose hairs wet, be like a Sasquatch, like an animal, absorb the smell that woke you up. And lo and behold, you could smell that tang of rotten human odor times 30 or 40 times. And you knew a Sasquatch was downwind from you. And
Wow.
I just, yo, we just Dzoonakwa. We just lay Dzoonakwa. Hello, I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. What are you up to, Sasquatch? And you'd hear them, and they'd move off. And, they were with you. You knew that. They were the ones of the night. We're the humans of the day. And, so I started to get a really good understanding of what Sasquatches were. And then back in, I guess, early 2000s in that in Bush, I had a 2006, I had a pretty nasty encounter with three or four Sasquatches that ran me out of my cabins. I have 5 cabins for sea kayak adventures I used to do with whales. They ran us out of there. We had to get in my turbo and get the hell out of there. They were that aggressive. Rolled a big
Whoa.
boulder size of a smart car down the bank into my camp area, shaking trees. I've had a run-in with a rogue on an island when I was out hunting one time where I was running through the forest and it's throwing, you could hear it breaking fallen trees that were probably, I guess, maybe 20 centimeters in diameter. You hear, "Clunk," and all of a sudden you hear the thing boom and explode like shrapnel on the trees I was running through. And it was a rogue Sasquatch, a hunter killer. And I got the hell, all I kept thinking about when I'm running down that hill through the forest, I sure hope I come out where my speedboat is. And I punched out of the bush, and there, not 30 feet away from me, was my speedboat. I cut the line, pushed off, started the motor, and got offshore. And big boulder comes flying through the trees, splashed in the water, and I just put my speedboat in gear and got the hell out of there. And that
Wow,
was one of the
man.
dicier ones. So
Yeah.
but I call myself as a modern day bushman. My leg finally calved out after 40 plus years commercial fishing 19 months ago, and I had to retire and take this job as the manager at SasquatchLegend.com. But prior to that, I was living a life, that was just amazing. The
Wow,
things,
man.
experiences, run-ins with Sasquatches, encountering them, surprising them, playing bush chess with them. The other day, last week, I had a scare about blood tests, and they wanted me to go get a test, and I'm thinking, oh, it's from Cancer Society Canada. Oh, I might have colon cancer. Oh, because I had diverticulitis disease when I was in my 20s. I had most of my bowel removed. So I was kind of, feeling down that, geez, I might be pushing up daisies here pretty quick. And I thought last Saturday, I thought, it's time to go have some fun, time to go play bush chess. So I grabbed the 22 rifle from the back bedroom and my bear spray and pig sticker, big side knife, and another backup knife. I went into the bush part and I walked up a hill where there's been a lot of Sasquatch activity, but then I just hit the ground crawling through the ferns that are about 2 meters high. And so I wasn't seen using windage to my advantage. I worked my way up to a sheer rock wall where the forest was growing right against it, walking through that, I was on a downwind position, wind in my face, and I was using that so I wasn't giving silhouette and crawling and peeking and looking. I got to a good vantage point where I could see where they'd logged about 10 years ago, which is called a logging slash, and it's good for animals. Animals feed there, the deer and so forth, and elk. So I pushed myself into like a little overhang crevice in the rock with the wind in my face. And I just sat there watching, listening, smelling. You get your water bottle, wet your nose, fingers, stuff them in your nose, get those nose hairs wet so you can smell like an animal, like a Sasquatch. And all of a sudden, a male and female deer come out of the logged off area into the edge of the timber were up below me. And Buck was in rut and he's trying to get a piece of tail, and she was having no part of that. And all of a sudden, that deer just boom looked uphill. The doe, because the male, he's all hormoned out, and that all of a sudden that female's ears just turned, her nose went up, she smelled, and she just turned, white tail up, bing, 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 bounced down the hill with the buck right behind her. And I'm like, okay, what spooked them? I better wait a bit. I waited about 10 minutes, nothing. So I started working my way up the hill again, using breaking silhouette and everything, crawling. And I seen a big spruce tree about 2 meters in diameter. And I'm like, okay, I'll get to that tree and I can use that to hide behind like a Sasquatch, looking an uphill and side hill. As I just got to that tree, all of a sudden I could hear a noise. And whatever it was had made the choice. Okay, I can't get downwind. That Sasquatch always want to get downwind to you so they can smell you and you can't smell them. And he chose not to go up the hill where the bluff rock faces were. And because he probably knew that I'd see him. And he seen me, I had a rifle. Not that I'm going to shoot him, but he chose to go into the wind so I could smell him. And he moved a bit. I couldn't see him. He could have been 20 meters from me. It was so thick, the timber. And, that's what I always tell people. It's like our forest here is as thick as untrimmed pubic hair. It's thick and you can't see bugger all. And I'm looking and smelling, listening, and all of a sudden it just erupted. Oh, it scented, let its scent glands from its armpits out to let me be known I don't want you here. And that right then and there, I just stood up, looked at to where the smell was coming from, and I pointed downhill. I'm going that way. And I started walking downhill away from him, give him respect. So
Wow.
playing bush chess, he got the checkmate that day, not me. But I have been there where I've been into the wind looking, and there's the back of a Sasquatch
Oh, you
licking his
seen it?
nose, trying to find me because he knows I'm there. We were like two fighter jets, like a Spitfire and a German fighter back in the Second World War over your English Channel, trying to get the better advantage, using windage and everything. And then all of a sudden, I come up, hiding, looking. And there's the back of a Sasquatch, and I seen him look up to his left. He looked high up into the trees, and all of a sudden, his whole body just shuddered, and his oily black hair just vibrated. And that's when I learned Sasquatches, like any other Indian, use body language, hand signals, body language to communicate without having to use vocal cords or tree knocking or things like that. And when he shuddered, I looked up, and there up in a tree, this smaller Sasquatch was looking, looking all over. And what he was doing was probably telling him, look behind you, see where the hell that human is, that hairless one. And that's when I went, yo, look at this. In my language, that Sasquatch turned, he jumped, tore off down the hill. That one in the tree jumped, sprung again, disappeared in the bush, crashed, and they knew that I got the checkmate that day. That's bush chess.
Wow. Man, how big were these ones that you were seeing that day?
That one I snuck up behind was probably 7.5, 8 foot. Shoulders are about that wide.
Whoa, so like the size of two men, basically, in width.
Oh yeah, they're
Whoa.
easily 5 to 700 or 800 pounds. They're huge.
Yeah.
They don't call them big fellas for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wild, man. Wow. What can I ask you what you think a Sasquatch is? Like, are they
I don't I
human-like?
don't think I know what they are. When I talked in my language in northern Vancouver Island at nighttime to a Sasquatch downwind from me where I was in my hammock, and I said something in my language. Hello, I don't know who you are. How are you doing? It answered, "Ichman, I'm doing good." And then it sniffed, made some noise, like it got closer to me in the darkness. And then in my language, it asked me, who am I? So I gave him my name, my native names, Hawet Sewid, and I come from the Tum Tum Souls Juxi, the house of Tum Tum Souls, and I'm Kwakwaka'wakw. That's my tribe. And you answer, yes, And then he stood up, and in our language, he just, way in the moonlight. Way is our way of saying goodbye. One of our ways of saying goodbye. It's the informal way. You say, way means goodbye. I'll see you again or
Wow.
whatever. And if it's formal, you would say halakialasla, go in peace. That's what the chiefs say. But right there, I knew what they were. And then studying with shamans from numerous other tribes, and I asked them, all the same questions. What are they? Well, you know what they are. They're the members of the other tribe. We're the humans of the night of the day. They're the humans of the night. So while we're sleeping, snoring, and farting, they're rooting around here in Forks and Pacific Northwest all over in our gardens that still have potatoes and turnips. Our apple trees still have apples on them this time of year. Our greenhouses with stuff. Our compost box. Being a Sasquatch and opening up a dozen compost boxes in the back of the forest edge, at the edge of the forest, I mean, where the houses are, is like going to a smorgasbord. Sasquatch doesn't know what in Washington State or British Columbia, they don't know what a cantaloupe is. But can you imagine being a Sasquatch opening a compost lid and all of a sudden there's a half of cantaloupe, seeds are cleaned out, it's a little mushy. That's why the human threw it in the compost. And a Sasquatch eats it. By God, that's good. Or else we buy strawberries this time of the year in November and the grocery store and grapes and plums because we get them from Mexico and elsewhere, and all of a sudden they get a little bit soft, the tomato, we throw it away. But to a Sasquatch in the fall, winter, early spring, when those vegetables and fruits don't grow or don't even grow here, and they're opening a compost box and finding that along with meat scraps, that's a buffet to a Sasquatch. And that's why we're seeing an increase in urban edge activity and encounters of Sasquatch throughout Sasquatch Island, North America.
Mhm. Wow, man. So would you say Sasquatch is like another type of human?
It's the Indian people, the indigenous people of the three Americas. Sasquatches are Adam and Eve. We evolved from them. So you with your bearded face, I could 60 years old. I've tried growing beards. Give it up. I've seen more hair on a bloody peach. And I'm a thoroughbred Indian. My evolution made it so that I can count my chest hairs on two fingers. My wife accused me 19 years ago when we got together that I shaved my legs. And I said, no, I'm just a thoroughbred Indian. I don't have body hair, nothing. And most of us Indians are like that. But if you look at the old black and white photographs from the 17, 1800s, even early 1900s in North America, you'll notice that the Indians are all very, very chothlam, black, dark. And that's because we evolved from the Sasquatch. And now we got Scots and English genes in my body, and my woodpile contaminated me. My sister, on the other hand, her 10 years younger than me, she's nice and dark in the summertime. She's just chocolate dark. I can never get like that. I got too much of the European genes in me. So the evolution was, if you want to understand Sasquatch, the first thing you do is start studying the anthropological, historical, cultural literature shows of an Indian people's region. So pick Vancouver Island, northern Vancouver Island, Kwakwaka'wakw Indians, otherwise known but long time ago as Kwagiutl or Kwagyok, and we're called Kwakwaka'wakw. But you study the Franz Boas stuff and all the different literature because we're one of the most studied tribes in the Pacific Northwest, if not all of North America. And you'll find that we had seasonal migrations based on food abundance, shellfish, herring spawns, seaweed harvesting, shellfish winter um, villages, salmon rivers, hooligan fish during March and April. So we're always in seasonal migration, and Sasquatches are the same. And then you'll find out the Kwakwaka'wakw have tribal territories with pictographs, paintings, and pictograph and petroglyphs, rock carvings, and oral history that we still adhere to this day that go back thousands of years. Well, when I was talking to my wife one time with a map of Vancouver Island area and the mainland and the islands in between, all of a sudden I looked at her. I'm like, holy shit, Peggy, those cinnamon colored Sasquatches seem to be in this tribal territory of my nation. And the ones in my territory are within my Mamliaka tribal territories. And it almost looks like the Sasquatch clans, tribes, their boundaries correlate the same as our tribes because it's all based on seasonal abundance of food harvesting. So here's where they are for the shellfish in the winter. Here's where they are during the summer and fall, early fall for salmon river spawn. Here they are in the spring for hooligans and big low tides with seaweed and all the seafood they can get at low tide. And, it's just so looking at all that. And when you study in depth about Sasquatch, as I do, and I have the background of knowing all the anthropological and cultural aspects of my tribe and others, you see that they correlate, they overlap, they're the same. But the only difference is Sasquatch have laws, very strict laws, where thousands of years ago, when our ancestors were Sasquatches, some fool took two rocks and clicked them together and made sparks and made fire and was probably told, don't you do that. We have laws. We don't use fire. And all of a sudden, another one clicked rocks and made a blade. And oh, gee, you got fire. Gee, let's cut some meat and cook it. Oh, that's pretty good. We told you we have laws, very strict laws. Don't do that. Oh, bugger off. We're going to do it. We like having tools. And those other clan Sasquatches that keep coming into our shellfish bed, I'm going to make a spear and go chase them out of there, kill them if I have to. And that's how we evolved to become the smaller bipedal of North America with less hair. And we went down this evolutionary path of using fire, tools, weapons. Then we had permanent shelter, clothing, lost more all the hair, and we became the native Indians of the day. And we have pictographs showing that one time the humans were fighting the bigger humans with hair, the Sasquatches, with spears, bows, and arrows, fire, Lovelock Cave. They killed all those giant Sasquatches in there down in the US here. So we have all this evidence showing that we evolved to be the inferior bipedal species of the planet because we know there's Sasquatches in every other continent and region other than Antarctica, Orang Pendek, Yeti, Yowie, and Neanderthal in Eastern Europe, and the list goes on. And so when I look at all of that, I think we have to be like Sasquatch again. We have to progress back to feralism. And
Mhm.
when I lived in the bush for months on end, one time I went months without human interaction. I got so sick of humanity back in the early 90s. I just walked in the bush and didn't turn back. Even when I ran out of cigarettes and coffee, I just stayed out there, living like a Sasquatch. And basically progressed back to feralism. And that's why I have such a good understanding of Sasquatch, why they're so elusive. I remember seeing a helicopter land and below me, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna go down there and see those humans. Bet someone's smoking. Bet you someone's got a thermos of coffee. And I went down the mountainside, took me between about 4 hours. And they were, when I got there, like a Sasquatch, I pulled a branch down and I looked at him. And there was a cute looking blonde sitting there eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I could smell it because my nose was so powerful from being out in the bush for so long. And I could smell the roast beef sandwich with mayonnaise the other person was eating. And I could just absorb that smell of the coffee the guy poured out of his thermos. And there's the fourth worker smoking a cigarette. And as much as I wanted cigarettes, coffee, bite of that, half that sandwich each, I just let the branch back up, turned and like a Sasquatch, walked
Wow.
downwind away from them.
How
I
long
didn't
was
want
you living
anything to
like
do
that
with
for?
humanity because he had nothing good to give me. And
Hmm.
that's why the Sasquatches don't come sit at our campfires with us or come knock on our door. They've looked through our windows. That's why so many tribes refer to Sasquatch as the Watcher, because they're looking in our windows, watching us. One of my Omaha Indian tribe friends from Omaha, Nebraska Indian Reserve in central US. I went down there for a couple of weeks, and man, it's overrun with Sasquatches on that Indian reserve. And anyway, Lucas, when I got to know him, he told me a story. 10 or 11, he went home and his dad was on the chair, leaning back, mouth wide open, not breathing. And he ran to the neighbors, a mile and a half away. And, young kid, I can't wake my dad up. He's on the chair. He won't wake up. So they drove back. And sorry, Lucas, as they put a blanket on his dad. Your dad passed away. He must have had a heart attack. So they brought him to town to the police. Police called social services, brought him to his mother's house. His mother was a bad alcoholic. I never wanted to raise my kids. I guess I have to now. We'll have a bath, Lucas. Will be food on the table. When you get out, a young boy goes, has his bath, goes to the dining room table. You got to remember these small little one-room houses, and poverty's huge on our Indian reserves back in the day. Still are. But he sits down and he said, I was eating Fruit Loops cereal and coloring in the coloring book. All of a sudden, I heard someone come up the back porch and I looked and there was a police officer. So I turned and ran for the front door, but my mom was there with another police officer and a social services woman. I can't do this, Lucas. You go with them. They're going to bring you to a foster care. They drove him over 20 miles plus off the Indian Reserve to a elderly Caucasian couple. And this will be your foster parents. You'll go to school tomorrow. You'll live here. They'll raise you. And Lucas said, I waited till I heard them snoring. And I stole food and money and blanket and I left. It took me almost 3 days to walk through the forest till I got back to the Indian Reserve. I started playing with my cousins and their parents came out. Lucas, no, you can't be here. Social workers and the police are looking for you. They'll take me and your uncle away or lock us up or they'll take our children. Go on now, you get out of here. So he had to go and sleep in an abandoned house that night. But the pack res dogs, we call them reservation dogs, were growling at the doors that were not there because it was a dilapidated, unoccupied house. He ran in a closet, closed the door, and slept in there. Next day, he went into the bush, and then that night he went to his grandfather's house and slept up in the tree, tied himself in there with his blanket, and slept. Next morning, his grandfather prodded him with a stick. Lucas, get down. Police and the social services are looking for you. Your father and I taught you. Our family members and others from the tribe, when their family members die, they'll leave the house as a shrine. They'll put food and blankets in there for the afterlife and leave the house. Eventually, the trees grow up around it. And then maybe we log the trees for a cornfield or alfalfa field, but you'll see the island of trees where the shrine house is. You know those shrine houses have food and blankets. You live there from now, March, until October when the freezes come. And when the winter comes, you come into town and get apprehended by social services. And just go to the police station, and then you'll go to foster care for October till March, and then do like I did when I was in residential school, run away again in spring. and live in the bush. So Lucas did that. So when I met him, I noticed he was feral. He was nighttime, he would crouch down and touch me with his elbow, and he'd lower his voice. He wouldn't look at me, and he was always using his nose. And that's when I noticed he's feral, just like I was. He knows what it means to go to progress back to being a Sasquatch way of life. So I
Wow.
said, Lucas, there's no bloody way a kid 10, 11 till he was 17 could live out there in the bush by himself year after year, March to October. I said, Sitonga, that's what they call their Sasquatches, keeper of the medicine. Sitonga, they looked after you, didn't they? Lucas put his head down. Yes, I have a lot to tell you, Tom, in time, but they have laws, very strict laws. So a few nights later, we're playing around with a forward-looking infrared device on my cell phone. And we're white man's magic, no offense to anyone that isn't Indian, but wow, look at this thing. We just turned the dark to daylight, and we were just having fun. And battery died. We go recharge it, run back out. And finally, about 11 o'clock, I'm like, I'm going to bed, Lucas. We're in a two-room, two-bedroom cabin at the edge of the Omaha Indian Reserve, about 3, 4 kilometers or more away from the town. So we're out in the middle of Timbuk frickin' nowhere along the Missouri River and forest all around. We knew there were Sasquatches watching us because every time I go out of the cabin, I have a cigarette, tree knock, depended on what wind direction. If the wind was blowing this way, it was over to my right. If the wind was blowing that way, they were downwind to my left. And so Lucas and I were using that FLIR to try find them. And I went to bed, and about 2 in the morning, I got up. Lucas wasn't on the couch where he said he was going to sleep. So I quietly, remember, I'm a hunting guy and, bushman. When I'm quiet, I'm quiet. I quietly went outside. All of a sudden, I could hear, and then I could hear louder in the bush. And I went around the side of the cabin and looked. There's Lucas standing there with the FLIR in his hand, and he's looking in the bush to his right. Something would answer. One would answer to the left. He'd turn and look to his left and answer that. And I quietly backed back in the cabin, went in my bed, went to sleep. I wasn't going to interrupt him. He was talking to his clanmates, the ones who looked after him, I imagined. So the next morning, having coffee, I asked Lucas. I said, I went outside last night. He goes, yeah, I know. I said, how'd you know? I went quiet. I could smell you. And that's
Wow.
what I knew. He has the
Wow.
nose like I do in Sasquatches. Because you got to practice it. It's like weightlifting. You got to practice, build up your strength
Wow.
of your nose. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of tricks. Use your cat or your dog and put them in an upwind position, have a blindfold, and walk up to them, crawl up to them until you can smell them and keep smelling them until pretty soon when they're upwind to you, you'll find that they're 10 meters away, but with the blindfold on, you can walk. Well, that's where they are, right up there. So you can
Wow.
work your nose to work in unison with your brain
Mhm.
to improve its sense and everything. So anyway, Lucas, I said, you're talking to them. He goes, yeah. He goes, they don't want to come near me. And I said, how come? He goes, because I drink and smoke alcohol and do pot. They can sense all that. And they have laws, very strict laws. So I learned a lot from Lucas. I can go on for hours about what I've learned, still do, because I'm, white man's magic, Facebook Messenger, modern day smoke signal. Me and him talk every week. And I've reached out to other shamans. Like when I was in Omaha Indian Reserve, I met a shaman woman. And as I was introducing myself, polite because I was down there. I brought my native attire with me, so I was showing her, and we're making a bridge. That I was respecting her by sharing my culture with her, and I wanted the same. All of a sudden, her young boy, probably 8, looked up at me. Hey, mister, have you seen the big hairy man? I said, as a matter of fact, I did. 2 nights ago, we were going out the road there, and that house over there, just before it, there's a field. And we have a night vision scope called a FLIR. I'm looking out the driver's side window and to the field, and there was a big pregnant female Sitonga Sasquatch and a big male about 8.5 feet tall, just walking along 60 meters from us. So we stopped the car. We're both looking at him, and they just turned and walked into the timber and disappeared. And I said, I was walking towards that house over there, that white one. Oh, that's our house. Our trailer burned down. So the chief and council gave me and mom that house to live in. So I went to that woman. I said, why would the two Sasquatches walking towards your house, especially that pregnant female? Oh, because I'm a shaman and I lay food out, fry bread, meat, chicken, and then I also pick plants to each season from root right to the tips and put them on a table with the offering of food off to the side. And the sitonga, the keeper in medicine, will come at night and pull maybe the leaves off of a certain plant, or the root, or the bark, or the buds, or the flowers, leave them on the table, brush everything else onto the ground. So in the morning when I come out and the offering's gone, I see what during that time of the season is medicinal remedies. I'm like, wow. So anyway, as I was studying with her for quite a while, quite a few days, I'd always ask her questions. And that one day I said, how old does a Sasquatch get? And she goes, 130 to 150 years on average, I guess. And the older ones, 180, and the ones that are white, gray, probably 180 to 200, maybe a little more. I was like, how do they get so old? Inside my head. Aren't you listening to anything I've been teaching you? Sitonga, we call them, keeper of the medicine. We shamans, like every other Indian tribe in North America, you learn from the older shaman. But what happens if warfare, disease, and accident, the shaman dies without passing on the knowledge? Now your tribe's got no shaman, no doctor. That's when someone volunteers and walks into the forest for maybe a year, 2, 3 years. And when they come back, they say, I have the understanding for the plants, the remedies, the poultices. Because what they did is they went, and it takes years. Lucas is still trying to reactivate the interaction with this Sitonga clan that looked after him as a kid. And he can understand them and communicate with them because I caught him. And he's very elusive. He holds it in because they have laws, very strict laws. I can release stuff to you, Tom, in time. I think what he's trying to do is get permission to share with me because he knows I'll put it into YouTube videos and things like that.
Hmm.
So he's going to get their permission. But
Interesting, man.
so Sitonga, keeper of medicine, then other shamans I've worked with all agree the same thing. Oh yeah, our shamans used to interact with them back in the day. So yes, we can get a Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction and get an editorial in National Geographic and that individual on the cover with a Sasquatch. Then you have the first researcher of Sasquatch. Anyone who calls himself a researcher of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, is so full of shit, their eyes should be brown because there is no researcher because no one's been on the cover with a Sasquatch in National Geographic. We're all investigators, stumbling and bumbling and speculating.
Hmm.
And, a few of us, like me and Lucas and other natives I know of, yeah, we get close to them. Me, I don't get close to
Wow.
them like Lucas and another guy I know, but, I'm trying. But
Yeah.
I have been close enough that I had in 2012 building cabins for my Indian tribe on a 250-acre island. I told my two family member native guys that were working with me, we're living when we first started, we're living under a tarp. And then we went to tents and then we built a cabin. We were staying in there. I told them, I said, you boys, when you go to the outhouse to go number 2, you take the rifle or shotgun with you. I said, we got a Sasquatch probe in our camp. Oh, you're just trying to scare us. I said, come with me. I said, I don't bullshit. I'll show you. I said, when it's blowing southeast, let's go up this rock bank. See how it's been standing and sitting? All of the rotten branches and twigs are pulverized to just chips from the weight of their feet and their ass. But look what they see. They look right down into our camp and can see our picnic table where we sit and play cards at the end of the workday into the evening around our wood stove we had outside to stay warm. And I said, now come with me to the other side of the camp when it's blowing northwest. We had a big tarp up and we had our generators and compressors and equipment to build these cabins and lumber under there so it didn't get wet. You got to remember, we're living in a rainforest out here. It rains every bloody month. So anyway, I brought him there and I said, I brought a plastic milk crate with us. They're pretty heavy, you can stand on. And they're about probably 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, like a cube. So anyway, I put it on the ground. I said, look at all this grass. It's all been trampled. Something's been standing here. So put the milk crate down and stand on it. Because that thing's probably 7.5 to 8 feet tall. And what do you see up there, Darcy? Oh, I can see over the tarp now, the back of our picnic table and where our wood stove is in our cabins. I said, they're stealing our garlic and apples too. So be on the lookout and, keep things tight. What eventually happened was I ended up hearing something, a stick come thrown out of the bush. So I went bush chest and I jumped from behind the cabin and I locked face to face with a teenage, lanky, 6'4" juvenile Sasquatch teenager. He went like that. I went like that. He turned around. I turned around, jumped in the cabin. Darcy's like, you quit picking on the Dzoonakwa. I'm not picking on him. I
Whoa.
just scared him and he scared me. Didn't think anything of it. So next night, more garlic goes missing and another couple of apples. They're unlocking a twist wire to get into my aluminum food blocker. And I need my garlic out there. We got a lot of shrimp and crabs. You gotta have garlic butter with that kind of bush food. So I was okay, I gotta end this. So just as it was getting dark, we had been clearing that whole area for the November monsoon season to begin, all the rains like we have right now. That we're gonna burn everything. We didn't want to catch the 250-acre forest on fire and burn our island down. So we were waiting until November to burn these piles of branches and leaves. And right at the entry into the forest trail that leads to our outhouse, probably 70, 80 meters from behind our cabin, I had this big pile of leaves, like maple tree, alder, we call it. And I stuck out the window and I crawled through the piles of leaves around them. And I got to that big pile of leaves at the edge of the forest and I crawled in there and hid with my rifle. And sure enough, as it was getting dark, that Sasquatch, that juvenile, was coming along the bush, inside the bush, looking at the back of my camp, grabbed the tree about, I guess, that thick, bent down off the 5 foot berm, because it used to be an old logging road. And he's looking at the back of my cabin, and not 2 meters from him, I come shooting out of the leaves. Hey, F you doing? He grabbed that tree, pulled it up. Trees snapping, leaves are falling. I jumped up and I'm like, you get the hell out of here and quit stealing my food, you hairy bastard. He turned and just ran crashing through the bush. The next day we're working and we had a non-native guy, carpenter, there helping us. And kept looking and everything because I knew I was being probed and watched. But because the leaves have been falling now, we can see into the forest and up the hill. And I'm looking, and something just doesn't look out right. So instead of moving my eyes, I go, Darcy, grab me the scope from my gun. I had a 3x9 Bushnell scope for a rifle in a cardboard Bushnell box. He brings it over, gives it to me. I told him, crank it to 9 power. And I don't want to take my eyes off what I'm seeing. And I put the scope up and looked. There was that bigger, the male Sasquatch, the daddy, covered in leaves, leaning against the cedar stump about the tree back in the day was probably 10 foot in diameter. Just a big stump now, about 3 meters high on the side of the hill, roots. And that Sasquatch was sitting there like that, watching us. Every one of us grabbed the scope, looking at it. You can see its face and everything. And all of a sudden, when he knew he was checkmated, he stood up, leaves falling off, turned,
Whoa.
walked up the hill. I looked at my crew and I said, well, I just pissed higher up the fence post than him and his son. I guess they're going to swim off the island now. We got peace. They'll quit stealing our food. And that's exactly what happened.
Man, so
That was,
for the people listening, he gritted his teeth at you and let you know that,
oh, yeah, they always do it.
whoa,
This is
man.
this is not a Sasquatch mask. This is the little hair-covered bipedal creatures called buckwus.
Oh, wow.
See?
That's incredible, man. Wow, so that's not a Sasquatch. That's,
Oh, Dr. Jeff Meldrum in his book that I bought in 2015. When I went home and was reading it, I got to the part Cockatoodle Indians call from northern Vancouver Island call their Sasquatch Buckwus through the book at the wall. You'd think a bloody doctor would have the wherewithal to come sit with us Indians and ask us the right name of our Sasquatch instead of speculating and getting it all wrong. And that's why I, was pissed off. And the next day, that night, my wife said, Peggy goes on her way to work with Boeing. She goes, "Why don't you go on a podcast?" I'm like, "What's a podcast?" She explained what it was. So, of course, Google Sasquatch podcast. What's the first one that comes up? Sasquatch Chronicles. Go to the
Oh,
website, email them. This is who I am, yada, yada, yada. Started doing my native art while Peggy was at work. And not 2 hours go by and my phone rings. This is Wes Germer. He
oh,
goes, "Can I
wow.
ask you a few questions?" So I introduced myself. We started talking. He goes, "Can you stop? Can I record this and put it on a podcast?" "Yeah, sure. What the hell?" So I talked. He phoned me not even a week later. He goes, "Everything's lighting up. People want more of the Indian on Sasquatch Chronicles." So I ended up doing like 7 episodes, and that sort of springboarded my into, I
Wow.
guess well, I call it what it is, Sasquatch celebrity status, where I'm doing, well over 150 podcasts now, probably,
Wow,
and
man.
video casts, conferences, interviews from magazines, newspapers, travel journals, even star in the movie Bigfoot Girl on Amazon Prime. On
Wow.
November 28th, I'll be going to the big, um, is it David Pilates? Missing 411. He's having a
Yeah.
big thing here in Washington State in the city of Tacoma, a big the opening show, premiere showing of American Sasquatch. I was on 3 years ago, I was on the Alaska Bigfoot cruise with Dr. Jeff Meldrum and David Pilates, and became friends with David, and I'd already been friends with Jeff. And he interviewed me for his American Sasquatch, and then he came to Forks, Washington last summer and film crew and everything inside the store again. And then he came in a year ago, November, and he bought a drum similar to that one from me. I
Wow.
got pictures of it and everything. And
That's so
it was an
cool,
honor
man.
selling a drum to David Pilates.
Absolutely. Wow. Man, that's so cool. And Sasquatch Chronicles, that's one of my favorite podcasts. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
The best thing to do is just go to sasquatchisland.com. Like when you email me a link for this podcast, I'll put it on my podcast page.
Awesome.
I'd like to one this winter, me and my wife are gonna sit down and try to put all of my podcasts onto that page
Yeah.
that we can find.
Wow. That's
I've
wild,
been
man.
in Sasquatch Syndicate and the list goes on.
Yeah.
And
That's
then we do
so
our own
cool.
video production. That TV monitor there and station is my wife's desk, and she's editing our all of our video productions. We have YouTube channel, Sasquatch Island.
Awesome,
We've
man.
only done 2 productions so far, but more are coming. And I do Sasquatch expeditions. It's when I work the store, and this house is a company house, and if someone comes here and books in a all-inclusive Sasquatch expedition with me, you'll stay in this house. And as you'll notice behind me, all the Sasquatch pictures and all my original art and other stuff. And down the hallway is room 1967, the patty room. And it's got a trace of a patty cast on plexiglass. And it says patty room 1967 because of Bluff Creek. And inside is all kinds of pictures and autographed posters from Bob Gimlin.
Man.
I never did meet Roger Patterson. He passed when I was a kid, but we got all kinds of stuff in there. 50th anniversary commemorative patty cast, gold painted. It's the patty room,
Wow.
2 queen-size
Man.
beds, and then
I'm
we
coming
got
over,
another
brother.
bedroom with another bedroom. And then what I do is I bring people here, bring them to the store. Even a guy like you might want a double XL t-shirt, and
Absolutely.
I'll get you. You can sit there and videotape me while I silk screen your t-shirt. Whether it be a
Wow.
Sasquatch design, Sasquatch Island, or maybe SasquatchLegend.com logo. And you get to film me, Tom Sewid, doing your t-shirt and
That's so
other
cool,
stuff from the
man.
store. Then we go out with we have, but we didn't pay anywhere near that, but probably less than 5,000 we paid, but we have over 50, $60,000 worth of thermal night vision stuff, plus other parabolic listening devices. I own a P1000 Nikon with built-in telephoto lens. I think we have 30 trail cameras now, and a lot of them are, we're getting more and more that are cell phone hookups, so that I'll get a ping and I get to see the black bears sniffing away at my trail camera again. But I
Yeah.
have captured one Sasquatch on the trail camera on Vancouver Island. So, and I hold the longest, my team holds the longest video records to date of Sasquatch at night on a shellfish beach with Fleur, 16 minutes, 40 seconds recorded. And then the longest daytime video, Lucas filmed the Sasquatch, 3 minutes, 40 seconds, Omaha Indian Reserve.
Why is that on the website as well, those videos?
They're on Facebook. I don't like, I'm saving them for the video productions we're doing.
Hmm.
I don't like reposting them because there's too many whiny little Karen bitches out there.
Yeah.
It's a blurry Sasquatch. It's someone in a suit. Meet me at the
Yeah.
next Sasquatch conference. We'll go to the dumpsters and have a dance. I guarantee you, you'll be looking for a dentist when I'm done with you, you little
Yeah.
whiny bitch. That's why I don't like posting stuff on
Yeah. You're always
social
gonna get
media.
that. That's the problem with social
Yeah,
media. You're always gonna get that. Man, that's
yeah.
what. Can I ask you when you was off the grid and you was living as a Sasquatch? How long was you in that? How long was you living like that for?
257 days is my record.
Wow, man, that's a long time. And did you
No, it
did?
wasn't long enough. If it wasn't for that thing Peggy put on my finger, I'd be out there right now.
Wow, that's
Yeah, we've been
wild.
together going on 19 years. And when we first got together, I'd come down from Vancouver Island to Kent, Washington, just south of Seattle, where she lives, working for Boeing. I met her in the bush.
Hmm.
And so, anyway, we got together, and I'd be down here for maybe not even a week. And she'd see me looking at Mount Rainier, the big volcano mountain, Tahoma, they call it in the native language. Or she'd see me looking at the little patch of forest. And she goes, "Go home, Tom. Go back to your bush water world. I'll be here when you get back. Don't worry." So I'd go
Wow.
up, work a bit, come back, and then eventually I could stay longer and longer. And that was 2015 era when she introduced me to the remote control and finding Bigfoot. I'm like, BFRO, Bigfoot Research Organization, my ass. BFRO stands for Bang Forest Research Organization. That's why I ain't ever going to find anything, because they always bang with the
Yeah.
wood knockers.
Yeah.
When a Sasquatch bangs on a tree, whether it be with their hand or a stick, stop, turn around, go back where you came from. Why would you be so disrespectful as to go into the Sasquatch's forest home and bang a tree, telling him to stop, turn around, and go back where you came from? He is where he came from, and you're disrespecting his ass by tree knocking. That's why BFRO never found a Sasquatch,
Hmm. Hmm.
and all their expeditions never find a Sasquatch. And they don't like me, so I don't care less.
Man, so when you've got close to the Sasquatch, can you describe what a face looks like? Because there's different perceptions out there. Some people describe them looking more like ape-like, some people
Come
more
here,
human.
grab a razor blade and shave a little bit here on your beard.
Hmm.
Grab some scissors, shave a little bit more, and just a little sparse goatee, and put black shoe polish all over your face and hair. Look in the mirror. That's a Sasquatch.
Wow. So a
They're
human a
humans.
human face. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. See, it's the reason why you're having a hard time comprehending it, and most hairless bipedals do, is because we got to know our history. So we're never destined to repeat its failures. In 1961, 4 years prior to I was born, Canada recognized Indians as Canadian citizens. We were no longer wards of the government. And my grandfather had to fight for our rights so that in 1934 he could win a court case so that Indians could leave their Indian reservations without waiting for an Indian agent who might show up once every couple of years and give you a signed piece of paper that you could travel to the city of Victoria or Vancouver. And prior to that, we couldn't. So, and we were forced into isolation within our enclaves of Indian reserves within our traditional territories. In 1974, the Australian government recognized the Aborigine people as no longer being flora and fauna listed. They now became Australian citizens, and they're still fighting for their rights and equality. It took a civil war in the United States for the American people to kind of accept that the African American is an American citizen, and they're still struggling with that. And in other places, your country, you had slavery, you guys started it,
Yeah.
and
Sorry, man.
so we have all these things where, you know, I tell people, even though I don't believe in portals or cloaking and UFO flying Sasquatches. I don't believe in the woo-woo bullshit. I'm a critterist. But anyway, let's say I'll go back to England to your ancestors 800 years ago, before the sailing ships left Spain and Portugal and your country and so forth. And I go back 800 years to your country and I come out of a portal. You know, what's your name again?
Tommy. Tom.
Tom,
Tommy.
yeah, Tommy.
Yeah.
Tommy, come with this, Tommy. Let's go. Jump in my portal. And you just left. Where are we? Well, this is going to eventually be called Hong Kong. And these are Chinese, Asians. Let's portal jump again. What the heck is that? Those are Aborigines. This is Northern Australia. It'll be found to exist in about the 1600s. Let's go again. Ooh-wee, what are those? Those are called Scandinavian, blonde hair, blue eyed, fair skin, little bit of freckle, Swedish girls. Dang, they built good. Oh, let's go again. Oh my God, what's that? That is an African. We're in a place called the Congo. Let's jump again. Oh my God, it's cold, but what are those? Those are Inuit. And they'll be referred to as Eskimos, but then they'll be fighting for their rights in the 1900s to be called what they are, Inuit, in the Arctic peoples. So next thing you know, when I throw you in a portal, I can't get you jumping no more because you just fainted. You went into shock because you'd seen so much diverse human species adaptations. And that's why when people come in the store and look at Biggie, our mannequin, that's 8.5 foot tall Sasquatch, shoulders out to there, they can't comprehend that that's a human. That's why I had to learn to be able to explain to them that it's the North American Sasquatch Island indigenous Indians, Adam and Eve. That's where we evolved. So let's look at the evolutional evolutionary path for those Sasquatches that said we have laws, very strict laws. And because you want to use fire and tools, we cast you out. You're not allowed to live here no more in our territories. So they go on the evolutionary path to become what we are, Indians in North America. But the ones that trade in harmony and balance with the environment, with no fire, no weapon, no tool, no permanent shelter, no clothing, they have laws, very strict laws. So now let's go back to 1984 to a movie called The Gods Must Be Crazy. To be a good Sasquatch investigator, one must watch The Gods Must Be Crazy again and see what an empty Coke bottle thrown from an airplane can do to a South African bush people's clan, family clan unit that lands. He grabs it. Oh, this is neat. It made a whoop, 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 whoop when it landed in the sand. And I picked it up. The gods have given me a gift. Oh, look at that. It magnifies and I can make fire with it. Okay, I'll bring it to my family. Oh, we can drink water in it and hold water in it. We can roll seeds and grind with it like on our grindstone. And it's an instrument. We can play with it. Pretty soon, the empty bottle, envy, jealousy, greed erupts. And all of a sudden, the siblings, the kids are fighting and over this empty Coke bottle, and the older sister grabs it, bonks her younger sister on the head, drops on the ground crying. And the father, clan leader, goes in and grabs that empty bottle. What's wrong with you gods? You must be crazy to give me this. Look what it's done to my family. We never had fight, jealousy, hate, anger, violence. You gods must be crazy. Now I have to take it to the edge of the world and throw it back to you because it's bad. They have laws, very strict laws. That's why Sasquatches how they act is the way they act and why they're so elusive to us and don't come near us. But they do have tools. Give me a sec, I'll grab them.
We're back. Yep.
So these are what you call Sasquatch killing stones, used in an area probably for deer, for Canada geese and other birds sleeping at night on the mudflats, an area with elk, Vancouver Island, an area on the mainland with moose. So what the most of them are river stones. They get and beach stones that roll millions of years and they become round. Are my ancestors, but they're far and few between. It might be 40 miles apart, round stones to find them. But my people and other indigenous tribes would bring these stones back to their villages and they would heat them red hot in the fire, use wooden tongs, pick them up, put them in a box of water to rinse off the black soot, put it in another box or basket with food and water, and steam and cook their food. They're cooking stones. And big ones like this used as well in the big feast dishes that we used to have. But anyway, our people would leave those villages. Disease would wipe out those villages, and the forest would cover everything. But the waves hit the bank because it's salt water, and it erodes the bank called a midden complex. And these things will roll out and land on the beach, or they're left on the beaches in some places when very isolated, abandoned native villages. So Sasquatches go to those beaches because Indians live there because there are winter villages for shellfish. There's shellfish all the way around. So Sasquatches, no humans living there, going there. All of a sudden they see that on the beach. Oh, I better take that with me. So when I go up tomorrow when the wind's blowing southeast, I'm going to go up 500-foot elevation on the island and I'm going to sit in a junction of animal trails with the wind in my face. And Cliff Barrickman has one about that big in his house because my cousin and I were in my 26-foot trailer with a 10 foot by 10 foot addition on our tribal island and woke up in the morning and blowing real windy southeast. He goes, well, don't look like we're fishing today in a speedboat. He goes, let's go deer hunting. We'll go across the channel, not probably 300 meters. We'll go across and we'll walk up to that elevated hill where there's a junction of three animal trails to the different logged out areas. We know there's a lot of deer and cougar and wolves going by there, bears. Let's go sit up there and shoot something. It's so windy today. And yeah, okay, let's go. So we went up there. He was just a little bit ahead of me. And as he got to the crest, he stopped and looked at me and he went like this. That's sign language for Dzoonakwa, Sasquatch. So I'm quiet now, super quiet. Get up beside him and he points. And there's crouching by a big fallen down cedar tree about 2 meters thick. There's a Sasquatch crouched, nose into the wind below us, watching that junction of the animal trails. And oh shit, I got my camera. So I reach in my vest. I grab the camera as I'm pulling it to move up to get a picture. My canteen hits a tree. Dunk. The Sasquatch turns and looks. Bing! Does like a 15-foot jump. You see something roll off the log and it hits the ground, bing, jumps again, runs. I'm like, damn it, stupid canteen. We went down to that log where the Sasquatch was, and there in the ground was a round killer stone. And
Wow.
that's when I put it all together why I was finding these round rocks in areas that I would go to for wind advantage to shoot something, but there'd be a round stone. Or this one, we seen Sasquatch tracks on Vancouver Island with elk tracks everywhere. And we found this by the bones of an elk. Oh, it was raining,
Wow.
just some leg bones and that. But that was
So
probably the
they're
killer
kind of,
stone that took out that elk.
yeah, big stones and very smooth. They look very
Yeah,
smooth.
and Cliff Barrickman at his North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon, at his store and museum, I gifted him one here in Forks 2 years ago at our Sasquatch conference when he was speaking here. it's on display in his museum. It's one of
Wow.
that's the one that jumping one I just told you about.
Yeah, you said that jump 15 foot high.
Oh God, they jumped.
Wow.
It's like springbucks when they jump.
That must be wild to see that. That must be wild.
Yeah. Well, you look at the size of their from their knees to their shoulders, it's just like that.
Yeah.
They're built like a spring.
Man. How many times have you seen one of these creatures? Is it
I've been within 10 feet of them twice. I've been within 25 feet of them four times. I've been around them over 30 times. Knowing they're around, seeing them, hearing them, smelling them.
yeah. Man. Difficult question, but how many do you think are out there? Do you think there's a large number of them out there? Or do you
I think
think,
there's over 100,000 on North America alone.
wow,
They're
man,
humans of the night. So in British Vancouver Island, I worked with some native tribes and they wanted to do GIS mapping of their Sasquatches within their tribal territories. So when I was brought in and we were discussing everything, I said, we do know they're going to the shellfish beaches in the winter. You might see them, and they're so good at not leaving tracks. It's hard to see tracks. We're never going to get a GPS tag on them, and they go for hooligans, and that's all forest. I said, bottom line, they're master hiders. And I said, but we do know they're going to the rivers. We find their tree structures on rivers and streams that salmon are spawning in and steelhead trout. And here on the Olympic Peninsula, there's a salmon spawn or a steelhead spawn every month in one or many or other rivers and streams here. So we came up with a formula of every 10 kilometers of a river, stream, creek system that has salmon migrating up and steelhead trout. For every 10 kilometers, there's a factor of four Sasquatches. So when you take the Olympic Peninsula and you look at I can't remember how many rivers there were now, 27 or 17 that produce salmon and steelhead. Well, you've used the factor of four because what happens is a lot of rivers deep, except for these areas where there's riffles that deep, where the salmon and steelhead and trout stay in the deep water during the daytime. And that's where we go fishing with our fishing gear. But then at night, when there's no predators like eagles and wolves and raccoons and hawks and osprey to get them, they move upstream and they go through those riffles. And you stand there with your headlight and your harpoon and you just watch them. It looks like World War I infantry going up the ladders across the barbed wire and through no man's land. That's what it's like standing on those riffles at night when the water is shallow. And you use your headlamp harpoon, gather away. Every now and then, rock gets thrown at you. Crash, boom, splash. Okay, guys, grab your fish. We're out of here. Sasquatch has said it's their turn. Respect. And us Indians will leave the river and let them fish now. And so for the factor of four for every 10 kilometers of optimum river with a shallow riffle or multiple riffles, a factor of four Sasquatches. So Olympic Peninsula, you'll get a number of 168 to 220 Sasquatches just on the Olympic Peninsula. So when you go to sasquatchisland.com, my website, and scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, you'll see three maps. They're interactive. One of them is the Olympic Peninsula, the other one's Vancouver Island. And Carrie Kilmurray, who I work with, she's trying to do another one now. It's Pacific Northwest, Canada, US. But go to the Olympic Peninsula and blow it up and click the icon Sasquatch. Balloon will come up, tell you about when the sighting took place and everything. Bullhorn, vocalization, heard, when and what happened. Footprints were observed, how many, so forth. So I highly recommend going to it, and then it'll give you a good understanding of it's on like Donkey Kong here on the Olympic Peninsula when it comes to
yeah,
Sasquatch, and it's
wow.
even more on Vancouver Island. So, if people that are listening, you want a bucket list, do an adventure of a lifetime, we'll come out with North America's #1 leading Indian Sasquatch guide. I'll put 22 people on Sasquatch and have some standing records right now on video. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
I know the bush and I
yeah,
know
man.
Sasquatches.
I want to come over, that's for sure. Man, so interesting. I've got another difficult question, but how like the groups that they hang out in, that the Sasquatch, the tribe, whatever you'd call them. How many do you think there are in like a Sasquatch group?
Highest number I've heard of in one place, seen at one time, was a clam beach off northern Vancouver Island by one of our tribes of our nation. 11 were observed walking just outside of their torch lights while they were digging shellfish. There has been evidence, though, when you look on YouTube and you've come across that low light video camera of a couple with two dogs sitting in their pontoon speedy boat on a trailer behind their pickup truck in the forest because their transmission blew, and you hear mass vocalization. And there's other audio clips out there of mass vocalization. So grizzly bears and other animals, when it's mating time or they come across each other, someone's breaking the urine and scents and going into someone's turf, you'll see them posturing, roaring, yelling, shaking things, throwing things, and then one will leave, and the victor is the victor. They know it's not good to go clash and fight because injury, death, extinction of your clan, your tribe. So they don't, Sasquatches are the same way. And out here in North America, we'll have uh, powwows, which are the Plains Indians' big gatherings. We'll have potlatches in my tribe. The European newcomers that came, the trappers, the prospectors, the explorers, they still have them called rendezvous. They dress up in deer and elk buckskin. They shoot black powder rifles. They got raccoon hats on. They have their annual gatherings. And what happens at annual gatherings? Same thing goes in England when you have a big summer, spring event. People are bumping uglies in the tents and the caravans. There's some new girls here. We're gonna go get it on here because it's nature's God's code to strengthen the species by spreading the seed from other bloods. And when Sasquatches mass vocalize, and people have recorded, I've heard it once, scared the living bejesus out of me. And about a month later, when we came back that way, me and my cousin went down till we heard the mass vocalization. And we seen where a rendezvous powwow potlatch of Sasquatch clans converged had taken place. There was mass amounts of bones still stinking. There was trampling and bedding areas, tree structures. And for you Sasquatch guys, I'm the one who opened the world, enlightened everyone that's got a penis. Don't go near teepee structures and lean-to structures. The ones that are shelters, you'll know they're shelters. The other ones that don't retain heat or keep the snow or the rain out, they're signboards that there's a female with blood, menstrual hut, or a birthing hut. Because male, when you study the anthropological, cultural aspects of all Indian tribes in North America, or one or two or a few, you'll find that we all were the same back in the day. Even when I was a grizzly bear hunting guide, I remember showing up at my girlfriend's house in Vancouver Island. I'm like, yoo-hoo, gonna bump some uglies. And all of a sudden, there comes my bag of city clothes out the window. She goes, "You better not come in the house, Tom. It's my monthly." I'm like, yoo-hoo, go and get a hotel room. So I'm gonna bump some uglies. Off I went and got a hotel room. So what it is taboo. If you go near female blood, you're going to either get injured, die, or not get your animal of during harvest or fishing. So it's indicative of every tribe and the old times. Sasquatch are still like that. So if I'm a Sasquatch and I'm out just doing my thing, checking the windages, and all of a sudden, oh geez, teepee structure. We better go upwind and go around it. Whew, good thing I didn't go near that damn bleeding woman. That's taboo. That's bad juju. And that's what it's all about. So when you get these mass, what we saw evidence of, because outside of the area, when we did a 360-degree probe where this Sasquatch rendezvous powwow potlatch had taken place, we found blood structures that we didn't even go near. We don't have no reason to go near there. And I watched dumb Caucasians crawling in them on TV and YouTube. I was like, oh, dumb white man. So stupid white man. He's going to give up hunting. And that's the same thing. Sasquatchers are very observant, hence the watcher. Never, ever wear camo when you go Sasquatch investigating. I do. I even got my new Timu camo running shoes in the mail today to match my camo everything else. I'm even wearing camo underwear because I'm one of the first humans to ever wear real tree pattern camo when I was a grizzly bear hunting guide because they came out to test it out and I was their guide. And I was every time they cut a tag, it's called when they harvested an animal. I got another piece, a hat, a shirt, a jacket, pants, and a backpack. And I loved it. I was, I got pictures of me, the first non-company human to ever wear real tree pattern. So I love camo. And I wear it when I go to conferences or when I'm on the go travel because I look cool. Sasquatch Island hat, Sasquatch Island badges on my camo, matching my camo running shoes. I look cool. And that's what it's all about. But when I go on bush, I don't. And it's also for the people who are listening, it's a throw out.
Mhm.
Do I want my competitors that are investigators to find Sasquatch with video and camera before me? Absolutely not. It's competition to get on the front cover of National Geographic and awards and all the money you're going to make. So when I wear camo and they're out there going, gee, Tom looks cool. I better order a jacket like that and Timu running shoes that are camo too. So when I go Sasquatch investigating, I look just like Tom. Tom don't look like that when he goes investigating. He's wearing neutral colors.
Interesting, man. Do you think some of the like the missing 411, like you mentioned earlier, do you think some of them are due to Sasquatch, due to people
Oh, absolutely.
not listening to the warnings and you know,
Absolutely. Uh, Someone didn't listen to the warning. Next, you know, it got eaten, became a steaming turd on the forest floor a couple, three times by a Sasquatch. Human Sasquatches, some of them like being eaten beings, human beings, as they're human too. And that's why Indian tribes, when they translated the name of the Sasquatch, oh, what do you call Sasquatch? This. Oh, what does it mean in English? Hmm, the cannibal giants. And this tribe, cannibal giants of the mountains, cannibals from the forest. Even my tribe refers to Dzoonakwa and the male Sasquatch as being cannibalistic. They have the basket. They take the children and eat them or shove them in a sack and eat them. So if the Indian tribes, 1,200 plus, and a lot of them are telling you that Sasquatches are cannibals, it's telling you the Indians know exactly what a Sasquatch is. Only a species that eats its own species can be termed cannibal, period. So, what is a human? Sasquatch? It's a human. And that's why we're going to leave it at that for the next episode when I come on and we talk
interesting.
about the government conspiracy of the Sasquatch Bigfoot of North
Let's
America,
go.
Australia, and other places.
Oh man, 100%. I'd love to do that, man. Wow, brother, you've taught me a lot tonight. Wow, thank you very much. Interesting stuff. And it's funny because wherever you are in the world, you know, UK, wherever you are in the world, we've all got this thing built in us that we love to be in the forest. You know, it's a place where we can go and most of us go to the forest and it's like, relax. You know, it's built in us. So it makes you wonder that's because that's where we've come from, you know, like what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
Yeah. So while we're ending it,
Interesting.
just everyone who's listening, SasquatchIsland.com is my website. Got my art, my expeditions, all kinds of stuff in there. It's about what we do. Sasquatch Island YouTube channel, and of course, Sasquatch Island Facebook group. Please join. And when you do join, sit down. No woo woo, no circling any photos, no trying to shove a woo woo Bible down my throat sideways. I'm a critterist, but anyway, enjoy the group. And when you do read it right back to when I started it in 2015, you'll have read the Encyclopedia of Sasquatch and have a massive understanding, like me, of Sasquatch. And even I even do Sasquatch Island on TikTok. But definitely communicate with me if you have any questions. Don't forget about my art; it's all through the website and everything. And
Awesome.
take a check on your calendar one time and come out to Forks, Washington or Vancouver Island. I'll be happy to bring you on the investigation. But I thank you all very
Awesome.
much. And in my language, halakilasla. Go in peace.
Awesome, brother. Thank you very much, man. I'll share all the links in the show description so people can go right now and join up, sign up. Interesting stuff, man. Thank you so much. We're gonna have to do that part two You put that drop in there, and we're going to have to do that. So we'll sort that out. Thank you very much, man.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it where you can. That is a great way to support the show. And we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.